1925, Sperry's came up with a new slogan, Sperry's for everything. And these billboards start popping up around town as well. And the lady you see here by the billboard is one half of a newlywed couple. And the husband taking the photograph said, Sperry's for everything. That's where I found my wife. They even had a contest for Write a Jingle using the words Sperry's for everything. And the first verse went like this. On the highways leading down, this famous sign has one renown. You see it off ere reaching town, Sperry's for everything. And I'll let you read the rest. They also used it in all their ads. Everything at Sperry's, Sperry's for everything. And a Kiwanis member came up with the song, Sperry's for everything, which I'm sure was sang from the balcony of Sperry's. And it went something like this. Come on, sing along with me. Sperry's, Sperry's, where they sell canaries, sawbucks and mincemeat and diamond rings, bonnets and hatchets and screen door springs, arrows and gums and calicos, mirrors and bricks and garden hose. Well, I've tortured you long enough, and you weren't singing along with me. Plus, I don't know if I knew the next word. When I was researching through the archives of the Times-Herald on the history of J.B. Sperry's, I came across something. It had to do with streetcars. In the early days of streetcars, each car always carried a two-man crew, a motorman to operate the car and a conductor to collect fares and give the signal to start and stop, plus to provide a measure of safety should something happen to the motorman. Around World War I, in order to reduce labor costs, streetcar companies started experimenting with one-man cars, in which the operator also collected the fares, much as is common on buses today. Well, that didn't happen at Port Huron until 1924, when this was a headline in the Times-Herald. Car lines stop service under city ban. Commission threatens to take action. The city just didn't think it was safe to have a one-man car rather than a two-man car. And they finally ended up putting it to a vote of the people. And when the people voted, they decided on the one-man car. The reason being is the one-man car was 5 cents, but the two-man car, if they chose to select that one, was going to be 7 cents. So they selected the one-man car. It says automobiles furnish service as city awaits commission body action. Well, the problem is not everyone had an automobile. That was still a luxury. So people were kind of hamstrung, and the retail business in the city were hurting because people weren't coming into the city on the streetcars anymore. So while we're looking at streetcars, I thought this was about Sperry's. Well, I wanted to show you what Sperry's reaction was to the loss of business, especially in big-ticket items like furniture. Attention to the public. So long as there is no streetcar service, those desiring to shop in Sperry's August furniture sale, if they will phone number 1 and ask for the furniture department, we will be glad to send an automobile to bring you to this department without charge. And just about the time you think, what else can Sperry do to increase his business, Sperry's comes up with their own bus line. This bus line would take the folks from outlying areas to downtown Port Huron. They didn't have to take the train and then take a streetcar downtown. They could do it direct. But more important, they could go directly to Sperry's, which I'm sure was the first stop. And as we zoom in here, you can see they picked up folks in Fairchild, Richmond, Memphis, and Lambs. It goes on to say the round-trip fare is less than charged by the railroads and the running time is less. Also, the bus runs into the heart of Port Huron's shopping district, so that it's not necessary to use the streetcars, thereby saving the time and annoyance, also eliminating the extra fare. For your convenience, if you are unable to come to Port Huron, the driver of the buses will gladly do your shopping. Make out your list with the prices and give to the driver with the necessary amount of money, He will make the purchases and deliver it to you the same day. I thought it'd be great if I could find a picture of this bus, and as I was going through the Times Herald archives, I actually found one. And the caption on this reads, "The J.B. Sperry Company has recently added a bus line to operate between Port Huron and Yale, stopping at Brockway, Avoca, and Mrs. Dorsey's." Of course, that would be the Dorsey House. This should meet with approval of the residents of Yale and Avoca, as the train service on this division would not permit a trip to Port Huron and return in the same day. Operating bus lines to the points where train service is poor is in keeping with the Trade in Port Huron campaign, which the merchants of Port Huron have adopted. In March of 1929, Ben Sperry took a momentous business step. He merged his company with three other longtime Michigan retailers in Continental Department Stores Incorporated, a combination he felt would give Sperry's both substantial merchandising advantages and substantial cost savings. The other stores in the corporation were Smith Bridgman of Flint and J.W. Knapp of Lansing. But as 1931 approached, with the country caught in the grip of what would become the Great Depression, Ben Sperry was having second thoughts about the Continental merger and began negotiating to withdraw from it. But fate intervened. He was stricken with an illness and entered a hospital in Boston. Treatments that spanned several months were to no avail, however, and J.B. Sperry, founder of a successful mercantile and community institution, died on May 17, 1931. His death came 3 weeks short of his 63rd birthday. The funeral was held at the family home up on Gratiot Avenue. The 6 pallbearers were close friends, but he also had almost 20 honorary pallbearers as well, mostly business friends, including his architect friend Walter Wyeth. After J.B. Sperry's death, his son Clare Sperry, who in 1930 had been made merchandise manager of the store, was named to succeed his father as company president. The new proprietor, whom was suddenly thrust the responsibility of running the Thumb District's largest retail store and for fulfilling the expectations of scores of Sperry's employees, as well as thousands of Sperry's customers, was 29 years old. One of Clare Sperry's first order of business was to complete negotiations and to carry out an important plan that had been cut short by his father's death. He completed the withdrawal of Sperry's from the Continental organization, restoring the company to family ownership. The anticipated advantages of the merger had never materialized. Clare Sperry took over the store in the worst possible time in the 30s, which was the time of the Great Depression. Clare Sperry apparently believed that the best defense against the economic crunch of the 30s was a strong offense. In 1936, facing the hard times drop in people's buying power, Sperry's opened a Better Homes department. The store added refrigerators, ranges, washers, and other household appliances to its longtime household lines. The United States was thrust into World War II December 7, 1941. Within a year, Clare Sperry, though 41 years of age and beyond the reach of nation's wartime draft, volunteered for service. He was commissioned a lieutenant in the U.S. Naval Reserve, December 1942, and ordered to active duty. And for the first time, the day-to-day running of the store would be done by someone other than a Sperry. When the long war was at last over, when by then Lieutenant Commander Sperry had returned from service to take up the reins of store operation, and when wartime shortages would soon be a thing of the past, Sperry's was ready to look toward the future again. The new store was now 22 years old, and few changes had been made since it was opened, so Clare Sperry had plans drawn up for extensive renovations and remodeling. But before needed building materials for the work became available, disaster struck. On the night of April 20th, 1946, the store was extensively damaged by fire. Nearly 50 firemen fought the blaze for 4 hours. They were aided by city public work crews, called and directed on the scene by city manager. The DPW crews drilled holes in the Grand River Avenue sidewalk, so hoses could be pushed down to the basement. Whenever a hole was broken through, a spectacular shower of flames and smoke would spew out before firemen could get a hose into it. The next morning, as a fire department truck returned to begin pumping water from the flooded basement, nearly 100 Sperry's employees reported for duty. But instead of wearing sales floor or business attire, they were clad in sturdy work clothes, ready to begin the massive cleanup task. When Sperry's reopened June 24, 1946, eager shoppers lined up for more than a block in two directions to see and shop in the refurbished and restocked store. Repairs and redecorating after the fire gave the store a fresh look, but didn't achieve what Mr. Sperry had planned in his remodeling program of the previous year. So as soon as the store had recovered from the fire, extensive remodeling was begun in order to accommodate major departmental changes that Mr. Sperry felt new shopping patterns, preferences, and products demanded. The $100,000 project showed off to the public at an open house on May 8, 1947. And if you've ever been in Sperry's department store, I'm sure you're going to remember one of these pictures, either before or after the remodeling. Something else worth mentioning happened in 1930. The only armed robbery in Sperry's history sparked an exchange of gunshots that smacked of the Old West, with resultant injuries to two store employees. The bullet wounds, fortunately, were superficial. On December 17, 1930, with the store crowded with holiday shoppers, two men made their way into a mezzanine office where cashier Bessie Massey was counting currency and pointing handguns at her. Mrs. Massey's response was twofold. She screamed, then fainted. As the robbers began to scoop up the loose bills, D.S. Thomas, the store's controller, ran from his adjoining office in response to Mrs. Massey's scream. But as he approached, one robber pointed a revolver at him and waved him back. Thomas ran to his desk, grabbed a revolver, and opened fire. His two shots went wild, then his weapon jammed. Answering the shots, the robbers fired 2 or 3 times. One shot grazed Thomas's scalp, but not seriously injure him. Another bullet went into the telephone switchboard room nearby, grazed the left arm of Mrs. Ina Cheney, telephone operator, and went through the private branch exchange switchboard. Miss Cheney stuck to her post and turned in an alarm to police headquarters. The robbers ran out the back door to a waiting car on Superior Street and then escaped. Claire Sperry was also shot at as he was running down the mezzanine stairs to warn police. One of the robbers took a flying shot at him. The bullet just missed his head, burying itself in the plaster wall beside him and showering him with bits of plaster. The following day, the Times-Herald headline read, "Offer reward for store bandits. Thugs use stolen car and escape." And it shows pictures on the front page. The first one here is D.S. Thomas. He was a controller. They got shot at and grazed in the head. The photo alongside him is where the switchboard operators worked. And where the arrow is, that's where the 3 bullets went into the switchboard. And then below that, the first photograph here was Mrs. Massey, who is the lady that fainted, who worked also with her sister at the switchboard, which is right the photo beside it. And then the last photo here is the credit manager of the company, and he injured his ankle while running down the stairs after the robbers. And to my knowledge, the robbers were never caught. Claire Sperry carried on those values that were instilled to him by his father, J.B. Sperry. He was popular with his employees for his friendliness, cheerfulness, and the interest he showed in them and their families, and for the respect which he treated them. In 1953, he created a pension plan that made Sperry's a pioneer among department stores and establishment retirement benefits for workers. And he carried on the tradition of having employees enjoy themselves at parties and social gatherings. In this photograph here, you can see Claire Sperry along with his wife Florence, dressed up like Santas. And in this one, they're the center of attention. This was taken in 1952 at an employee party. November 30th, 1960, Sperry's underwent a momentous and for some a traumatic change. Number 1, Claire Sperry announced his retirement. And number 2, the store was sold to Alden's Incorporated, which was a Chicago-based firm. Alden's would eventually be acquired by the Wicks Company of San Diego. In 1971, after some loose bricks were discovered on the Sperry building, the south wall brick facing was completely redone. During the following 2 years, a $55,000 project refaced the building's west wall facing Superior Street with a stone aggregate and baked enamel siding, and also eliminated some display windows along Grand River Avenue. The store changed hands a couple more times until the year 2000, when it was owned by Stage Stores Incorporated. Sperry's an institution since it was founded in 1893, and the acknowledged anchor of Port Huron's downtown, closed and sold its remaining merchandise. The store's owner, Houston-based Stage Stores Incorporated, announced it would close 120 of its 600 stores as part of a Chapter 11 bankruptcy reorganization. The building sat vacant for a long time, and then finally it was converted into a theater, Sperry's Theater. So Sperry's name is still relevant to downtown Port Huron. And as you go inside, you can see things are completely different. You no longer have to walk up and down the stairs or take an elevator, you now have escalators. I don't think J.P. Sperry could have imagined having moving staircases. But then again, being J.P. Sperry, maybe he could. I have never been in this theater. I'm looking forward to being in it when I get back, if I ever get back to Port Huron. But I know what I'll be doing. I won't be looking so much at the movies. I'll be looking around the theater and saying, oh, I remember that was part of Sperry's. Looking at this pillar, well, that was certainly part of Sperry's. Yes, it's a different color, a different cap on the top, but I remember when Sperry's had a bunch of them like that, all lined up. I'd like to end this video series on Sperry's by telling a little story, a story that tells what kind of businessman Ben Sperry was. An area farmer told about the time he went to Sperry's Hardware to get a hay rake on credit. The salesman checked the books, however, and told the farmer that he still had unsettled account and couldn't charge more until the old bill was paid. The farmer apparently didn't have the money and left the store. A short time later, Ben Sperry heard about the incident. He got a hay rake, put it in his buggy, hitched up his horses, and delivered it to the farmer. He also told the man that if he ever had a problem with credit or anything else at Sperry's, to come directly to him. Mr. Sperry stayed for supper, and Sperry's remained the #1 store for the farmer and for all his friends and neighbors when he told them what had happened.